What's going on, everybody? My name is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com. In this video, I'm going to talk about the numerology surrounding the suspicious deaths of both Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee, who died nearly 20 years later. Bruce Lee is said to have died from various pills that he was taking, lifestyle choices that he made, whereas Brandon Lee died an even more strange death. He was killed on set of a film called The Crow, where a prop gun was supposed to be used with dummy ammunition. However, when the gun was fired by the actor, a real bullet came out of the gun, striking Brandon Lee, resulting in his death within a couple of hours. Now, this ritual is related to time, and specifically the Metonic cycle, which has to do with the moon. This ritual was also related to the moon landing, which was in 1969. In fact, Bruce Lee died on the date July 20th, 1973. July 20th might seem like a familiar date to some of you, especially if you're on the older side of my audience. That's because in 1969, July 20th was the date of the moon landing. So we're going to talk about the numbers of time that are significant and how the deaths of these two men were a tribute to those same numbers. Now, to begin, the language of Gematria is very simple. We start with the alphabetic order on the top left. We call this English ordinal, where each letter is numbered relative to its position in the alphabet, 1 through 26. The full reduction method reduces every double-digit number to a single digit using the rules of numerology. So J, the 10th letter, 1 plus 0 is 1. K, the 11th letter, 1 plus 1 is 2. Z, the 26th letter, 2 plus 6 is 8. Both methods can then be used with the reverse alphabetic order. These are considered complementary ciphers, but are still significant nonetheless. Using the standard alphabetic order, the name Bruce Lee has a gematria value of 71, B the second letter, R the 18th, U the 21st, and so on. Bruce Lee sums to 71. Many of these rituals involving deaths are related to total solar and lunar eclipses. Now, this ritual has everything to do with the moon landing and the Metonic cycle. So in this case, we measure to the next total lunar eclipse. The next total lunar eclipse to occur after Bruce Lee died was in the year 1974. You'll see that was on the date November 29th. Measuring from his death to the date of that eclipse is exactly 71 weeks. But this number 71 is special because when you write it out, 71 is one of only two numbers to have an ordinal gematria value of 144. In Jewish gematria, which is based on the ancient Latin alphabetic order, these two ciphers on the screen here produce much larger numbers. This Jewish cipher based on the ancient Latin alphabetic order, and it has more modern English characters placed at the end. And in this Jewish cipher, the word time equals 144. Bruce Lee was born on a date with reduced numerology of 25. The word time in the reverse reduction method equals 25. But check out the full numerology of the dates that he died, as well as the date that he was born. He was born 11 plus 27 plus 19 plus 40 equals 97. And he died 7 plus 20 plus 19 plus 73, which equals 119. And in Hebrew, time equals 97. And in Yiddish, which also uses Hebrew characters, the word for time equals 119. This ancient practice of coding letters into numbers and vice versa, dates way back to the ancient Greek, Hebrew, Babylonian, Sumerian cultures, and these numbers remain to be relevant to this day. So when we talk about the moon, we need to understand what the Metonic cycle is. And this is something that I personally wasn't taught in school, but perhaps knowing the numerology of this gives you a little bit more insight into the world than school intends us to have. So you'll see the Metonic cycle is a period of 19 years that syncs up almost perfectly with 235 synodic months. So essentially, the moon does a reset in the sky every 19 years. And this has been known for many thousands of years. The ancient Greeks even coded the number 19 into their language in regards to time and the moon. Using Greek ordinal gematria and Greek isopsephy, the word for time equals 109 and 1090. Now, in numerology, the zeros can be ignored, so these essentially represent the number 19. Also in Greek, the word for moon equals 19 when reduced. The 19th prime number is 67, and the other word for moon in the Greek language has an ordinal value of 67. So let's talk about how this ties into Seattle, where both Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee are now buried. In the standard reduction method, Seattle sums to 19. The most iconic building in Seattle is the Space Needle, which sums to 67 in the reverse order. 67, again, the 19th prime number. Seattle's coordinates are on the 47th parallel north. And 47 is a very significant number to time as well. Using the alphabetic order, the word time sums to 47. And a large part of this is because there are 47 degrees between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, each of which are 23.5 degrees away from the equator. The compass on the Freemasonic emblem is set to 47 degrees. The compass draws the circle. The circle equals 47 in reduction. The Space Needle has a restaurant on top of it. And with our S exception, where S is worth 10, it's only reduced once. Restaurant equals 47. And in Chaldean numerology, Space Needle equals 47. And on top of the Space Needle, there's a restaurant that completes one full revolution every 47 minutes. The date on which Bruce Lee died, 7 plus 20 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 3, we call this the life lesson number. This sums to 47. Bruce Lee's birth name was Lee Jun Fan, which is seen up top here. Lee Jun Fan in reverse reduction equals 47. And on the date he died, he was 4 months and 7 days before his birthday. 47, a number associated with killing, as we see in Gematria. Also in prime numbers, where killing equals the 47th prime number. So when we're talking about the moon and its metonic cycle, there's three of the most significant numbers that we need to understand here are 19, that's the number of years in the cycle. 235, this is the number of lunar phases in the metonic cycle. And then 254, which is the number of lunar orbits. And this makes sense because if you add 19 plus 235, you get 254. Now, if you measure from the date Bruce Lee died back to his birthday, you find he died 235 days after his birthday. His son Brandon Lee then died 19 years and 254 days later. So these three numbers right there are the three main numbers that make up the metonic cycle. Also consider that both men died on dates with tiny numerology of 19. 7 plus 2 plus 0 plus 7 plus 3 for Bruce Lee. His son Brandon, 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 3, also summing to 19. Something I've recently discovered to be very significant is that when you write out someone's name, you can convert this ordinal gematria to a date, and then when you measure to that date, you also find very significant numbers. So how about this? Consider that Bruce Lee died on July 20th of 1973. His real name was Lee Jun Fan, which sums to 88. And if you measure from the date he died to the date written, 8/8, August 8th, you find he died 19 days before that date. But what really solidifies this is that his stage name was Bruce Lee, which equals 71 in ordinal. And if you instead measure from the date he died to the date written, 7/1, it was also 19 days away. So these are all numbers of the Metonic cycle. And using the alphabetic order, the phrase Metonic cycle equals 127. If you measure between the deaths of Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee, you find they died 1,027 weeks apart. The date on which Brandon Lee died, 3 plus 31 plus 93, this sums to 127, just like Metonic cycle in the alphabetic order. Brandon Lee did not have his funeral for another 3 days. It was actually a quick funeral, 3 days after he died, April 3rd. It turns out April 3rd is 127 days after Bruce Lee's birthday. Notice how in the reverse order, Metonic cycle equals 197. The Metonic cycle is 19 years in length. This is coded into the language accordingly. The word moon has gematria of 197. But look at where Bruce Lee died. Kowloon Tong in Hong Kong. In English extended, this sums to 1,097. And again, in numerology, this represents the same number. And once again, if you look at the date he died, July 20th, 1973, remember, that was the date that Apollo 11, allegedly the first manned mission to the moon, the date that it landed on the surface, July 20th. In Gematria, when you write out Apollo 11, it sums to 73 ordinal with the ones added to the equation individually. And in the reverse order, it sums to 93. And think about how Bruce Lee died in 73. His son Brandon Lee died in 93. Just like the gematria of Apollo 11. And this still rings true to this day with celebrity sacrifice rituals. Consider this. In the alphabetic order, moon landing equals 118. Last year we had the death of Chris Cornell, who was born on the date of the moon landing, 7/20/64. We had the death of Chester Bennington. He died on the date of the moon landing, 7/20. Their birthdays are separated by exactly 11 years and 8 months. And using the alphabetic order, moon landing equals 118. The name Chris equals 33, just like the word eclipse, 33. And Chris Cornell died exactly 3 months and 3 days before the eclipse. Meanwhile, his buddy Chester died on the date July 20th, the date of the moon landing, which was 33 days before the eclipse, and Chester equals 33. So if you think what we're seeing play out, is all real, I urge you to check again. Either these men aren't dying or they're being murdered. It's one or the other. The last thing that's happening is that these men are dying naturally or by suicide. So we've talked a lot about the number 19 and how this continues to show up in these men's deaths and its significance to the Metonic cycle. In Jewish gematria, 19 sums to 244, which is the Hebrew gematria of the word kill, 244. The 19th prime number is 67. The phrases blood sacrifice and human sacrifice Both sum to 67. Brandon Lee's full name was Brandon Bruce Lee, which sums to 67. But here's where it gets really interesting. Notice how the 67th prime number is 331. Seen as we're talking about prime number relationships. Brandon Lee died on March 31st, the date written 3/31. Meanwhile, his father, Bruce Lee, celebrated his birthday on November 27th, which is the 331st day of the year. When we write out the name Brandon Lee, we cannot get any dates from either the ordinal or reverse gematria. Remember, with Bruce Lee, we had 7/1. He died 19 days later. So with Brandon Lee, we look at reduction, and we find he died 331 days after the date May 4th, which is written 4/5 or 5/4. In ordinal, Brandon Lee equals 90. March 31st is the 90th day of the year. Meanwhile, his birthday, Brandon Lee's birthday, February 1st of 1965, that's the date written 201. His dad, Bruce Lee, died on the 201st day of the year. Bruce Lee died at age 32. In Jewish gematria, Bruce Lee equals 32 and 320. And his son Brandon, born February 1st on the 32nd day of the year. So it's almost too perfect, right? It's almost like you got to wonder if these people really died. I guess they did, but maybe this is why they were chosen in the first place, right? I mean, who knows? So Brandon Lee's funeral was on April 3rd, and April 3rd is the 93rd day of the year. It was on the date, in the year 93. 93 is significant to this crucifixion code. Think about how the sun is said to be 93 million miles away. Jesus said to be God's son. In the alphabetic order, God's son equals 93. Also notice how it sums to 331. And Brandon Lee, dead on the date 3/31, in the year 93, with his funeral on the 93rd day of the year. Just made that connection now. That's pretty slick. The word crucifix sums to 93. And it was said Jesus was from Nazareth, 93. So there's a lot more that goes into this number. And it's obvious to see why they chose that date. The date of that funeral had full numerology of 119. And the reason that really sticks out is because the date his father died also had full numerology of 119. Remember, we saw this, the gematria of time, 119 in Yiddish. But Bruce Lee, anyway, was the master of Jeet Kundo. In Jewish gematria, Jeet Kundo equals 1019. In reverse reduction, Jeet Kundo equals 52. And on the date of his son's funeral, Bruce Lee would have been 52 years old. He would have also been 4 months, 7 days after his birthday. Remember time equaling 47. This number heavily coded into his death already. To wrap this up, just a quick look at the kill sacrifice numbers that are coded in here as well. Brandon Lee died a span of exactly 44 weeks before his next birthday. This is like the number 440. In Satanic gematria, Brandon Lee equals 440. In English extended gematria, Bruce Lee equals 440. But 44, this is a number that's associated with kill. Kill equals 44. This also means he was in the 59th day of his age. The word kill in Jewish gematria equals 59. And as far as the location in which Brandon Lee died, Wilmington, North Carolina equals 130. in the reverse alphabetic order. His father Bruce died 130 days before his own birthday. 130, the Gematria of human sacrifice. So there you have it, everyone. An obvious ritual. Are we being toyed with, Are these people really dying? And if they are, how obvious is it that they're being murdered by the numbers? Bruce Lee was working on a film called Game of Death, or he was at least having a meeting about it the day he died. And then you get his son who dies on a movie set in a situation where you'd think somebody could, intentionally murder him if they really wanted to. So this is what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time to understand what this Hollywood movie industry is all about and how they're really trying to control our minds and sacrifice their celebrities by the numbers. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching. See ya!